Hey everybody, and welcome to the very last update that I have for you, pretty much, this summer. Before I get into any of this stuff, it's been really great working with y'all. I've really loved reading the discussions that y'all have had. Even though we've had a little bit of a smaller class compared to other online sections that I've worked with, I think we only have like 12 or 13 people in this one, where usually I'm working with a full load of 20. I feel like the discussions have been better, have been more interesting and more involved than I normally get with the full-size classes. And a lot of y'all have gone the extra mile in those things, and I really appreciate all of your hard work and all of how friendly you are to each other in the discussion forums and things like that. Okay, so and I'll brag about y'all again a little bit as we close the semester in a week or so. So let's get right into it. So a couple of things to look out for. Now that we're entering into week 6, all of the classes available to you now. And I opened it up, several days ago, actually, sometime in the middle of last week. So if you wanted to, you could go ahead and knock out the remaining assignments. But you'll find those now here in week 6. And so we have chapter 14 and 15, the quiz, the discussion, those things are due, along with the final exam and the research article. And those are going to be due the normal time on Sunday. Now, if you look at the Westfield calendar, the Westfield calendar is going to tell you that the final day for classes is the 16th. And so if you want to have everything done by the 16th, go for it. That's fine. You're more than welcome to be done early. And in fact, if you can do it, I encourage you to do it, just so that way you have a little bit less to worry about. But if you want to take the extra 2 days for the weekend to finish these, go for it, because honestly, it still gives me enough time to be able to grade everything to have it submitted by the 23rd, which is when that stuff is due. With that being said, I can't push it farther than this Sunday. So if you're worried that you're not going to be able to make that deadline of having your assignments due, please let me know as soon as possible, so that way we can figure out what we're going to do with that. If you think that you're not going to have the exam or the writing assignment due. Okay, so let's get into this week's stuff, and then I'll talk a little bit about week 5's discussions and some of the things that I saw there. So, week 6, this final week is going to cover my 2 favorite chapters, which are on smell and on taste. And so you're going to, for these 2 chapters, get into the chemical senses. We haven't talked about chemical senses really at all this semester, so it is a little bit of a change of pace because we're working with something very different. Instead of mechanical reception or photo sensation, we are basically perceiving different kinds of chemicals either in our mouths or in the air around us. So chapter 14 is about smell, and chapter 15 is about taste. Both of these I think are pretty interesting, especially because you don't really hear a lot of this information in other classes. Whereas sometimes, in a health class, you might learn about the ear, you might learn about the eye. Typically, we don't hear about this stuff as much. The discussion for chapter 14 is, this is another one kind of like the chapter 13 discussion. You may remember that I asked you to sincerely try it. Don't just try to imagine it. So I really want you to try doing this if you have the resources available. Basically, what I want you to do is to pick out a candy, and what I mean by that is maybe some M&Ms, some Skittles, some jelly beans, something like that. And then I want you to plug your nose, eat one, and then try to guess what color or what flavor it is while you have your nose plugged. So if you have ever done that before, you probably know that it's different, right? But I want you to think about this at least in the context of what we've talked about in chapter 14, because why it tastes different to us will be discussed a lot in this particular chapter. And chapter 15 is going to be a very vague kind of question for the discussion, where basically you can just try to say what is something that you left wanting to know more about this semester. Maybe, for example, well, I'm not going to give you any examples because I don't want to prime you. But if there's something that you're still curious about, you can talk about it there. And then for your response, try to find the answer to somebody else's question and reply there. So for example, if somebody asks a question about the way the eye works, then maybe you can Google that and then post in, a quick summary of an article or something like that. So that's chapter 15. I talked a little bit about the research article that's going to be due at the end of the week. This is the one that's about wine perception. A couple of people have already submitted this. Fantastic, awesome. In case you haven't yet, I do definitely recommend at least getting through chapter 14 before you start in on this one. But hopefully you'll have read chapter 14 and 15 before answering some of these questions. The final exam is not cumulative. It is only over the final 4 chapters. So the things we've gone over this week and last week. So it's over vestibulation, touch, smell, and taste, along with the wine expertise article. So, I think it's pretty straightforward. It's organized the same way as all the other exams. Just to rewind to look at the previous discussions now, looking at chapter 14, almost everybody was exactly right on the money whenever you were describing exactly what happens for these found footage films where people started getting sick in the theater. And so I guess they're not really as popular as they were maybe 5 years ago, but this was like with Paranormal Activity, people would say they would get sick, and it wasn't because it was necessarily scary, it was because the camera would shake a lot. And so as many of you pointed out, the reason why that happens is simply because there's a miscommunication between the eyes and the vestibular organ in the inner ear. Basically, your eye is telling you that you are moving, your inner ear is telling you that you are not moving. And because of that, your body basically assumes that it has been poisoned, that it is sick, and so the best thing to do is to expel that, to vomit it out. So it's just like car sickness, but in reverse. With car sickness, you don't look like you're moving, so your eye's telling you that you're staying still, but your inner ear is telling you that you are moving. So that was for that. And then the chapter 13, this one, there was lots of really cool responses that I saw on this one. One, I can't remember who it was, but somebody pointed out that they felt kind of scared in this activity, and I totally agree with that. I know exactly what you mean. I've done similar things where I've tried to spend most of the day blindfolded or without vision, and it's really scary. It's really stressful. It's really made me anxious to not know where I was, or to get stuck and not being able to figure out how to do something. Somebody else had like their niece helping them out and assisting them, which was adorable. So if you haven't looked at some of those experiences that you had, that your classmates had, I definitely recommend it. It's very interesting, very insightful, and it seems like most of you that gave it a fair shot seemed like you were kind of surprised in a way of how much you miss out on, but then also what things you notice, which is pretty cool. All right, so that's pretty much all that I want to kind of reckon with for this week. I'm going to send out a couple of more emails before our class is over. I'll send out one reminding you about these final assignments, and then after that's done, I will send you another email whenever it is all graded, and I have all the grades posted, and then you can let me know if you have any concerns before I submit the very final grades. And I think that'll be pretty much it. So if you have any questions, please feel free to email me. I'd be super happy to talk with you. I think that's it. So I'll see you later. Bye.